Okay, Ravens travel to LA, play the Chargers. Chargers are balling right now. Like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, insane win against the Bengals.
Awesome.
First, they were torching them. They went scorched earth on Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Well, I don't even want to say Joe Burrow, but the Bengals defense is just an open feast for any quarterback that's willing to take it. Then they let Joe Burrow get back into the mix, but then they capitalized, had a late game drive, some late game heroics by J.K. Dobbins, and then they come out with a win. So the Chargers are hosting the Ravens, coming off of a disappointing loss last week against the Steelers, which we called, by the way. But you could feel the Ravens' disappointment in that game. They are now not ahead in that division, or they never were. But the Steelers continue to remain ahead in the AFC North. So this is going to be a game where the Ravens are pissed. They're going to come out fiery, and they're going to want a little bit of revenge. So, Beach, you're on the Chargers. I'm on the Ravens. Model is a pick'em at 22.5. Chargers are 3-point home underdogs against this Ravens team. So, Ravens, everything is great. Everything is going well for them, albeit except for the pass secondary. We saw Kyle Hamilton go back out with injury as well. So this team you can absolutely pass on, undoubtedly. But everything else the Ravens do is great. Great offense. Their front seven is phenomenal. You can't run on this defense. So this will be a Justin Herbert game, if any. Tell me why you like the Chargers here. What specific about this matchup gives you confidence in the Chargers to host the Ravens and beat them after a pissed-off loss last week against the Steelers?
Well, you said it already, man. The Ravens secondary is atrocious, been atrocious all year. And you can't tell me after last week that Justin Herbert isn't playing like a top 5 quarterback right now, if not top 3, along with, I would say, Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. And it's funny because he doesn't have any big name receivers out there. But I mean, he's getting it to Ladd, he's getting it to Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnson, Will Dissly. And it's just beautiful. And like what I watched against the Bengals is in the first half of that game is what I anticipate that they can do against the Ravens secondary. And so with that, they also have a pretty effective run game. And the defense has been, I don't know what their numbers are exactly for the defense, but it's been fairly decent this year. So at home,
great.
It's even great. It's great.
Their defense has been great. The Chargers defense, second overall in EPA per play allowed, second overall in defensive success rate. They're ninth overall in passing yards per game allowed. They're only giving up 209 passing yards per game. They're only giving up 97 rushing yards per game, which is good for sixth in the league. So
that's what I want to key on. That's what I want to key on. If you can stop Derrick Henry, this team becomes very one-dimensional, and you can beat them.
What's funny though is Derrick Henry lost the ball for the first time in years.
I know.
He fumbled for the first time in years last Sunday. So I'm kind of concerned that it's going to be a Derrick Henry legacy game.
It might be.
No, he's coming in pissed off. So
it might be.
That will be an interesting. That's a narrative game right there. A subset of the game at least. Derrick Henry coming in pissed off at the world about his fumble against the Steelers last week. So some crazy stuff right there. But, to your point, the Ravens defense is suspect in the passing game. And so now this will be proof, time for Justin Herbert to prove that he is that guy. I think he's actually proved it. We both on the show have been huge Justin Herbert truthers. I mean, if you look at the coaches that he's had coaching him, if you look at the lack of ability that he's had in the passing game, the guys that he's throwing to, and he's still making these insane plays, he is undoubtedly a top 5 quarterback in the league. And I think if you really asked any NFL GM, he would probably even be higher if you were to start a franchise over again today.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's the one mismatch that people are circling out here. But the Ravens are coming into this game pissed off. That's kind of a narrative that we're walking into here. Statistically speaking, I mean, it's for the taking here for the Chargers. as long as they can capitalize in the passing game. So we talked about how good the defense is for the Chargers. But the thing is that the Baltimore offense is operating really second to none. I mean, they're so hot. It's like immovable object against unstoppable force, this Ravens offense versus Chargers defense is. And you look at the Baltimore offense, they're second overall in EPA per play. They're fourth overall in offensive success rate. They're averaging nearly 30 points a game under Lamar Jackson. He's averaging 255 yards in the air per game, and they're averaging 204 rushing yards per game. That's good for first of the league. And so I think that it's going to be who sets the tone, who plays more physical. That's something we don't really talk about when in these NFL games is, you kind of expect, NFL teams, they're going to play the highest caliber football that they can because they're the best of the best, which is true. But it's honestly going to come down to the trenches on both sides. Ravens passing secondary catches a lot of heat, as it should. It's definitely below expectations on top of all of the sustained injuries. It's suspect. It's bottom in the league in terms of passing, metrics allowed. But if you look at the front seven, nobody is running the ball against this front seven. So it's kind of this uneven mismatch where teams can pass against the Ravens, but they can't run. And I think the Ravens are somewhat fine with that. If they're like, hey, you have to be perfect in the passing game. One thing we're not going to do is let you run. And one thing is the Chargers, the way that they like to do it, and we've seen it all year, they run the ball first and then they leverage the play action off of that. So they're going to have to come in here and really throw the ball more than what they usually do. They're going to have to come in here with a game plan that has a pass rate over the expected, especially over their usual pass rate, to really try and take advantage of this Ravens defensive secondary where it's weak. They won't find much success running the football. And I think that's going to be the key indicator of who takes this game is who bullies the other. Who in the trenches bullies the other the best. So for me, I like the Ravens to come in here pissed off. I think the Ravens offensive line is going to push around the Chargers defensive line. Khalil Mack is still iffy in terms of injury, so he may or may not be available. But I like the Ravens here. I'm going to roll with it. Beach, give me a review here. Why do you think I'm wrong?
Because it's going to be squeaky clean pockets for Justin Herbert all day. And I'll add another aspect to that. Recently, the last couple of weeks, he had a design carry inside the 5-yard line. And then he had 50 yards in the first half rushing last game against the Bengals when they were able to pass so heavily.
Yep.
That's an aspect that I think will help them. A kind of a facet of their running game, per se, is going to be the scramble game for him because dude's got wheels. Dude, he can move.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done that, so it's not necessarily something they'll key on. But he definitely can escape the pocket and make some first downs that way. And
he's going to have to. Looking at this here right here, LA's offense is 22nd in QB pressures allowed. Not great, but not horrible. Baltimore, they're fourth at generating QB pressures on the defensive side of the ball.
Not Monday.
They generate nearly 11 QB pressures per game. Yeah, not Monday, right?
Not Monday.
They generate pressure, better than most in the league. So, to your point, that's going to be a big, kind of an underrated aspect of this game is what will Justin Herbert be able to create outside of the pocket? Because the Ravens will more than likely have success getting to the quarterback. Can he rely on his legs to get him outside, roll out, find a guy open, or even rely on his legs to scramble and get a first down? That's a good point. That's something that we'll be watching for this game. The trenches are going to decipher and dictate the way this game is going to go. It's going to be nitty, it's going to be gritty, and it's both Harbaughs going at it to each other. So that's something we didn't mention.
That's a good twist.
That's a good twist. So it's going to be who can outwit the other. And maybe it's one of those things where it's just, John or Jim knows what the other's going to do just based off of that brother type telepathy. So it could be some voodoo magic type stuff. You never know. But this is going to be a phenomenal game. We get a pissed off Ravens coming against a Chargers team who continues to elevate themselves in all facets of the game and is definitely a playoff contender. So,
do you think the Chargers are dangerous in the postseason?
I do.
I think they're pretty dangerous in the postseason.
I think any team that has a defense like this, I mean, they're a top 5 defense, undoubtedly. Mm-hmm. Any team with a defense like this, and then if you pivot over and you have an offense where Justin Herbert is the quarterback, no matter the weapons, they're a threat. Can I say that they're pure favorites? No. There's a lot of facets of their game that is vulnerable, specifically the playmakers. I think that they really needed to go find like a dude for Herbert, but absolutely they can make a push. Somebody could get hot too, somebody like Quinn Johnson, or, we've seen Ladd McConkey. I don't think Ladd is going to be that guy, but somebody to just elevate this offense with sheer playmaking ability can make this team a contender, undoubtedly. So
Jim is fresh off a national championship, so he knows how to do it. He knows how
he cheated his way through it, but yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So, hey,
down in the record book.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right?
That's right.